Mythmoots, you've noticed that our guests of honor tend to be very Inkling-centric. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to expand out a little bit beyond our normal remit. So I'm really excited about that, taking the con in some different expanding directions. Marc Okrand, as I found out today, it's pronounced Okrand. He's a linguist. He studied Native American languages. He has a BA from University of California, Santa Cruz, and a PhD from University of California in Berkeley. He is worked for many years for the National Captioning Institute right up the road. But he's most well known for, of course, being the creator of such languages as Atlantean and Klingon. And so this evening we're going to learn a little bit of Klingon.
I'm going to move the easel because I'm going to write stuff, and that's too far to go.
No, I'll move it. I'll move it. You talk.
Okay. The other thing is, I hope everyone drank a lot of water. Spent time with actors, and I see you doing. Doesn't matter. Actually, yeah, put it here. Tomorrow I'm giving a talk about what Klingon is all about and how it came to be and how it's changed and all this and that, so I'm not doing that now. That'll be tomorrow. This is grammar class, so you have to know what a noun and a verb and all that sort of thing are. I'm assuming everyone knows what Klingon is. Is that fair? To speak a language, there's languages that are not spoken at all, but to speak a language you have to make noise. So if we're going to speak the language, we'll start with the noise. We'll start with the sounds. Klingon, even though it's from outer space, and even though these strange, bumpy creatures speak it, their language, the sounds of the language are consonants and vowels. And we can write them with regular English letters. There's Klingon ways to write it too, but we're not going to do that. I'll talk about this tomorrow, but most of the sounds in Klingon are perfectly normal American English sounds. So it's easy. Some of them are not, but most of them are. By total 100% coincidence, I didn't plan this, there are 26 sounds in Klingon. I don't know how that happened, but it did. We'll start with the vowels, because they're the easy ones. Okay, now your part in all this is to say it after I do. Okay, but we'll see how easy it begins. Okay? So here's ah. Okay. Now I can skip one. O. Ooh. Klingon's not tough, right? It's easy. The one I skipped, I write with a capital I instead of a little I. That's it. And the reason I write it with a capital I, if you've seen Klingon written with Roman letters, you've probably seen capital letters kind of popping in and out and coming and going like someone sat on the shift key every so often, randomly. The reason is that the writing system I developed was not developed for Klingons, and it wasn't developed for language learners really, or for students of language, or for literature. It was developed as a cheat sheet for the actors. So all the sounds that were kind of normal English sounds that they could probably get anyway, without me telling you anything, are written like regular letters. And I used a capital letter to mean either this is not an English sound, or it's an English sound, but some letters are pronounced various different ways, so be sure to pronounce it this way. Okay, so this is I, not E, because if you're doing like Romance language, E, O, U. It's not E, it's not I, it's I, so it's only a capital letter as a reminder. But it's not a tough sound, it's I give you. All right, there's 5 of the 26 already, it's easy. All right, consonants are easy, some of them, in alphabetical order for some of this. B, let's put things together with that vowel, so ba.
Ba.
CH is like in church, so cha.
Cha.
The reason I'm cheating here is because I want them in funny order. Is J like in judge? Ja.
Ja.
La.
La.
Ma.
Ma.
Na.
Na.
See? Pa.
Pa.
That's a T. Ta.
Ta.
Va.
Va.
Wa. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Not hard.
All right. Now here's some sounds that are actually could be English sounds in different dialects of English, or just they're English sounds that are just a little bit off from the way we normally speak it in this country anyway. So there's one that writes with a capital D. The reason I with a capital D is because it's not da, like in dog. Okay, it's a little different. So now we're going to do an anatomy lesson so that this will make sense. What I want everyone to do, seems to be playing along so far, what I want everyone to do is take your tongue, don't take it, put your tongue behind your top teeth, okay, and you feel the back of your top teeth. Then slowly move your tongue back along the roof of your mouth. The first thing that will happen is you hit a little ridge. Okay, then keep going, and the roof of your mouth gets hard. Keep going, and it starts to get a little gushy. Stop, so you don't choke. Okay. All right. When we make the D sound in American English, for the most part, most people, what you do with your tongue is put your tongue against that ridge behind your top teeth. So, da, 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 da. That's what some people do it different, but most people do like that. Da, 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 da. And it's the same thing you do with a T, ta, 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 ta. The same thing you do with an N, na, 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 na. Okay? And in Klingon, that's what you do with an N, that's what you do with a T, but it's not what you do with a D. With a D, you point it straight up the hard part. Okay? So ga, 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 ga,
Ga. Ga.
okay?
Ga.
Same thing with S. Okay? In American English, S, for the most part, most people do that same thing with the tongue in that ridge. Sa, 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 sa. Not in Klingon, point straight up at the hard part. Sha. It's not SH quite. Sha. Sha. Okay? Now having na, ta, ga, sha in the same language is weird. If it happens to be an earth language. It's not, therefore it's not weird. Okay? R is a funny sign because in lots of languages in the world there's different ways of doing R. American English R is actually a strange one if you look all around the world. Klingon R is a light trill, rah, 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 like that. Rah, rah, rah. Many speakers of Klingon talk with an earth accent, go rah rah rah, but it should be rah, 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 including me, by the way. Then there's when I write NG.
No.
These doubled up things kind of single sounds. NG is we have in English. It's the sound at the end of sing, sang, sung, ding dong. Okay.
Yeah. No.
It's not weird,
No.
but in Klingon can come at the beginning as well. Okay, so it's nga, nga. If that's hard to say, it might be because it's very unnatural from an English point of view. Say dang it, dang it, hang it, hang it, ngit, ngit, and that's it. Okay, that's the nga. All right, then there's some sounds that are not in English at all. One of them I write with a capital H. It's a reminder that it's not English. It's not a sound. Ha ha. That sound doesn't exist in Klingon. This is okay. This is you've heard it in German, right? It's, when I wrote in the past and got in trouble for this, I said this is the sound at the end of the composer named Bach. That's true unless you have to be in Germany when they don't pronounce it that way. But anyway, it's also the sound. It's in the Hebrew toast, Yiddish toast, l'chaim, if you know that. Lach omen. It's that sound. What you're doing is taking the back of your tongue and going up against the gushy part, and then forcefully making noise. So that's that. Okay. Now, if you do that, right? Okay, and hum at the same time. As, so as I say but humming at the same time. All right, that with the GH. Okay, we don't have that one in English either.
That's voice. Yes.
That's right. So voice velar spire.
Ah,
Or
nice.
not spire, voice velar fricative.
That one's fun.
Okay. Then there's a sound I write with a little Q. That's almost like a K, but not quite. Yeah.
Is the Klingon mouth anatomy supposed to be different then?
I don't know if you heard him. He said, "Is the Klingon mouth anatomy supposed to be different?" One of the things I'll talk about tomorrow is the fact that the Klingon language, okay, although we talk about the fact that it's a language spoken by outer space alien Klingons, in fact, when it was created, it was written for human actors. So no. except in the new show, Star Trek Discovery, they do this extragalactic attraction. We can talk about that tomorrow if you want. They do some enhancement to make it sound a little different. Anyway, so there's this thing I wrote with the Q. In Klingon, when I was making up the language, I made a few decisions about what sounds to put in and why and stuff like that. And I wanted to make it, weird, because that's what they told me to do. But I also didn't want it to be trite. So there's no Z in Klingon, because Z is such a good outer space alien kind of, here's some guy coming down from a flying saucer named Zog and, and stuff like that. It's been done. It's good sound. Z is not a common sound in English, so it makes sense to use that. And I also didn't want to use K, for the same reason, because that's all over the place. I made a list of meanies, whose names or planets, whatever, begin with K. And I'm sure it's very incomplete, but it goes back to such things as Klaatu, the day the Earth stood still, if you know that, Klaatu with a K. Forbidden Planet had aliens, enemies called the Krell with a K. Flash Gordon had King Kala and Clytus, and Kang the Cruel. K. There's Kala in Spider-Man. There's a mean woman in Spider-Man named Kala. There's an alien in Marvel comic called the alien race, I guess, called the Kree. It's K. Chitin is in Red Dwarf. Krang, there's a guy named Krang in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. King Kong starts with a K. Krypton and Kryptonite starts with a K. Superman is nice, the other guy's not so much. Freddy Krueger starts with a K, There's a comic strip running in newspapers called Rooster Rocket. There's an alien called Karnor who comes along every once in a while. The Simpsons have Kang and Kodos. They stole it from Star Trek, but they have Kang and Kodos with a K anyway. The Orville has the Krill, if you know the Orville series. And even NPR agrees with me about this K thing, being this trite, evil sort of thing. There's an NPR show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. You may have heard of that. Yeah. They made up a character from one of their questions who was supposedly a villain in My Little Pony. And his name was Krastos the Glue Maker. A K. Everyone has a K. Okay? Yeah.
I'm wondering, are we going to come to the fact that there's Kang people on board?
And in Star Trek. There's Karen, Kalar, Klugen, Korob, and Chitin, and Khan. Okay? There's the Combs, the Kelvins, the Kalandans. There's Kodos the Executioner. Kodos the Executioner wanted to go into hiding, so he changed his name to Anton Caridian. Both of them have a K. Everyone has a K. All the time. There's Kirk. Yeah?
Chronos.
Huh?
Chronos.
Chronos? Well, that comes later, yeah. Okay, anyway, so I decided because of that, because of all this overwhelming business with the Ks, there's no K in Klingon. This caused a bit of a problem. Because not only does the word Klingon begin with a K, all of the Klingons we ever saw on TV in the original episode, except for the one female Klingon named Mara, all the Klingons' names started with a K, every single one. But I stuck to my gun. There's no K in Klingon. What you do is take, if you go like a K sound, go ka, don't go ka, sounds silly. Go ko, or something like that, ko. But instead of that back of your tongue going straight up to the bushy part, I have to go even farther back towards that little thing that dangles back there. Ka. That's what that is. So Kang is Kang. With that thing, okay? Core is core, not core. Core. That's what it is. There's another sign in Klingon. I'm going to write with a capital Q. Okay, this causes typographical, people dealing with typography and stuff to go crazy, because this is the only place where the case matters. Okay, if you wrote a B with a capital B, no one's going to get confused. You shouldn't do it, but people won't get confused. All right, but these two you have to do it right, which drives people up the wall and makes problems on license plates and stuff. What this big Q is sort of this and this together. All right, it's kind of like a furball.
And are there any actors who can do that?
Yeah.
Dutch ones.
And so one of the villain, the main villain in Star Trek 3 is a guy named Captain Krug. Okay, he's not Krug, because that would be Krug. You don't do that. He's kind of cool. Okay. Cool. So let's say. All right. There's more. It's not if you're counting. If you're counting, there's two more. Let's stick them in here because I want to get over. This is one sound, but you write it with 3 letters if you're writing it using English letters. It's T-L-H. This one I think is actually the hardest one to say from an English speaker's point of view. This is a T is like a T, but the LH is a silent L. Kind of. Or a whispered L is better. It's in Welsh. Okay, but the name of Llewellyn is a the sound comes out from the side, and the T comes in front, so it's T plus. It's a tra. And this is the first letter in the Klingon word for Klingon, which is Klingon. It's not Klingon. There's no K. It's Klingon. It's T-L-H. Klingon. Klingon. If you can't say it quite right now, we'll practice all night. One more sound, okay? And that I write with a little apostrophe, or a big apostrophe. So listen carefully. This is what this sounds like. Got it?
Yeah.
Glottal stop.
Glottal stop.
It's a glottal stop, if you know what that is, right? The name for that sound in Klingon is kahwit. Kahwit means interrupter. It's an abrupt onset or abrupt ending to something. Okay. In English, we've got this sound. We don't write it, but we have it in the middle of words. It comes in the middle, if this counts as a word. It comes in the middle of You don't say that little pause in the middle is that thing. In Klingon, it matters at the end. It's the word cha. Okay, cha means torpedoes. Cha, but cha, chopped off at the end. Cha, that's the number 2. So it matters. And with this, you got all the sounds. A Klingon syllable is very simple. A Klingon syllable always begins with a consonant, right? Then each one of these, again, even with multiple letters, is one consonant. It's one consonant, one vowel, and usually ends with one consonant. There's some syllables that end with just a vowel. There's a couple of instances where it ends with 2 consonants. But basically, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. That's a syllable. Very simple. Klingon is not tough, except on your throat. So now you put these sounds together to make words. Now here's the grammar part. In Klingon, there are 3 parts of speech. That phrase, parts of speech. There's something called git. That's a noun. There's something called what. That's a verb. And the 3rd part of speech is la. And it's everything else. It's 3 parts of speech. So for nouns, a noun consists of sort of a base part, a root or a stem or whatever you want to call it, and 0 or up to 5 suffixes. So, for example, the word for planet, because you should use relevant vocabulary in talking about planet, right? And you should know how to say that already, right? Yuk is a planet. Okay. And you can add suffixes to it, like the suffix me. Yukme means planets, plural. Okay? That's easy. And for English, that's pretty much it. In English, for nouns, you can take a noun and add a plural suffix to it. That's pretty much all you can do. Maybe a few other things, but that's it. But with Klingon, suffixes do a lot of other things. So for example, with this yuk again, you can add a few things. You can add a yuk means big planet. It should all be one word. I'm putting this because I'm going to put a list down here. Yukhon, it's a little planet, or planetoid maybe, I don't know. Suffixes indicate possession. Yuk, which, my planet, Euclid. Your planet, you have to write an I, as opposed to capital I, you have to write it that way because if you write an I like that and an L like that, there's a Klingon word, there's a word like that in Klingon. Anyway, prepositions, you stop on the planet, at the planet, something like that. You quote from the planet. So there's a bunch of different things that we do with lots of words in English, words in English that are just suffixes in Klingon. Now, Klingon is what's called an agglutinative language. That means that it's built up by taking things and adding to it, like train cars being coupled together. So chunk, 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 another one. So this is a trivial example of agglutination, which is just one coupling, but you can add more, okay, to make the word longer. So for example, you could have Yukme, it's planets. Yukme, which my planets. Okay, that's all one word.
What Earth language is agglutinative that we might know of?
The most famous ones are Finnish, yeah, but why am I blanking on the word? Anyway, Eskimo language, and a bunch of languages up there, but there's others.
German does some of that.
Huh?
German does some of that.
The German stuff, oh yeah, German, yes. But German is doing it with like they like to put
Yeah,
words
it has to be
together.
with just the nouns.
Yuch is one word, that means on the big planet. That's one word. Yuch mewuchdak, on my big planet, one word. Yeah.
Is there a hierarchy? Like there has to be an order of...
And they have to go in a certain order. You guys are really good. You asked the question I'm going to come to next. So you can say yuch me, which means big planets, plural, big planets. You cannot say yuch me'a. Okay, they have to come in the right order. So the only really tricky part, once you know all the suffixes, is remember what order they come in. Well, there's some more tricky parts because it's Klingon. There's 3 different plural suffixes. Okay, the one I've shown you so far is this me, means plural. That's kind of the general one, but there's another one, pu. Pu is plural if the thing that you're pluralizing is a being capable of language, like people. Okay? So Klingon pu. Klingon is a Klingon, by the way. Klingon pu means Klingons. Yeah.
Question. Is it potentially an insult to use name?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
There's another plural suffix, gu. That's a plural suffix that you use if the thing that's being pluralized is a body part. Okay? So deshkev is an elbow. Deshkev gu is elbows. And you can't use the wrong one with the wrong thing, okay? Because you can't say yukpu unless the planet can talk. You can't say Klingon gu unless the Klingon is a part of a body or something like that. So when you do use the wrong one, it's at best a grammatical mistake and at worst lethal. Having said that, this may suffix can be used with beings capable of language and can be used with body parts, but when you do that, it adds an extra meaning of kind of scattered all around. So deshkiv may means elbows all over the place. And this capable of language business extends to the possessives. So yuchwij is my planet, okay? Because which is the suffix that means my for general things, but if it's someone, a thing capable of language, like the captain of a ship, okay, who could presumably communicate. Word for captain is chod, so you would say chodwit, not chodwidge. It's very important not to say chodwidge talking to your captain. Yes.
And may has an alternate meaning when used in such a being. But what happens with the other one?
That's just bad news.
Oh, I thought maybe it had another alternate meaning.
No, the other one's gone. All right, that's how nouns work. All right, easy. Except when you put them together. Then there's verbs, okay? Verbs have both suffixes that work the same as nouns do. I mean, they mean different things, but the system is the same of sticking them together like that. And verbs also have prefixes, which nouns do not. So we'll come back to the prefixes. Take a simple verb, is yit. Means walk. Okay. There's no tense in Klingon. So this means walk. It means walks, walked. It means will walk. That's what that means, all those things. You can talk about things happening in the past and happening in the future, but you don't do it by monkeying with the verb. You do it by adding other words someplace. So tomorrow walk means will walk. Right? Klingon does have something that linguists and grammarians call aspect. And that's sort of how time is used. So you indicate on a Klingon verb whether the action is over already or is ongoing. Okay, it doesn't matter when. So yit or pu is a different pu. Yit pu means the action is finished. Okay, has walked. But again, time doesn't matter. Could be had walked yesterday, has walked today, I guess, will have walked. The tense doesn't matter, it's just the action is done. Tach, means it's ongoing. Is walking, will be walking, it was walking, yeah.
Notice you have a double consonant there. Are they held long going Klingon?
No, yittach. If you do it with an accent, it's held long, but if you do it right, it's yittach.
Oh, there's a separate consonant.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Although you'll hear it held too. It shouldn't do that. But some of the suffixes do other things as well. In the same way that noun suffixes do all kinds of stuff. So yitnish is must walk. Yitka, walk again. Yitlach, can walk, is able to walk. Yitchu, walk perfectly, be a skilled walker, walk correctly. Yitbet, not walk, that's where the negatives come in. The negative is a suffix on the verb. And like with the nouns, they can pile up, one after the other. Yitnishka, must walk again. Yitlachchu, can walk perfectly. Yitkabet, not walk again, and so on. And then you get a whole bunch. Yitnishkatlachchu bet, one word, cannot walk perfectly again. And with the nouns, that's the other question. They're going to have to take them over here someplace. They have to go in a particular order. Yitnishka, must walk again, fine. Yitkatnish, bad. Okay? And it's bad in the same way that if you said English, walkers is the way we do. Someone who walks is a walker, and a bunch of them is walkers. You don't say walkser. It's that kind of mistake. All right. In theory, with Klingon verbs, you can have 10 or more of these things lined up. When all this was brand new, I got a letter from someone saying, "Here, I made the longest Klingon word." It could have been longer, could not have, because you could have "not" in there a few times. I will come back to the prefixes in a minute. We'll move on to the next topic of grammar, which is syntax, which is putting the words together into sentences. Three basic parts of a sentence in any language. Shouldn't say that in most languages. You can't be absolute talking about this stuff. Three basic parts of a sentence are the subject and the verb and the object. The subject is the thing that does something. The object is what they're doing. And the object is the recipient of the action if there is one. So in English, dogs bite people. Dogs is the subject, the doer. Bite is the verb. People is the object, the recipient. If in some languages it matters what order those things come in. English is one of those. If you say people bite dogs, that means something different from dogs bite people. Okay. Other languages it's not the case. Other languages it doesn't matter what order they come in because they have little suffixes on to tell you who's doing what to do. Klingon is like English, the order matters. And the order in Klingon happens to be backwards from what it is in English. Okay, so in Klingon, the object comes first, and then the verb, and then the subject. Okay. Come tomorrow, I'll tell you why.
Because you want to mess with the actors.
No, no. The actors are much more concerned with their throats than they are with the grammar.
Has to do with its rarity?
Huh?
Has to do with the rarity
Yeah,
of
it
the ordering?
has to do with the rarity. All right, you steal my thunder. If you look all around the world at languages, okay, because even languages that don't require a specific order, you still have to say them in some order or other, so these languages have kind of a neutral order. And if you look all around the world, you'll find all the different possible orders of these things, and there's 6. There's object, verb, subject, verb, object, subject, verb, subject. Oh, okay, there's 3 factorial. There's 6 of them. And there's representative languages around the world for all 6. But some of them are a whole lot more common than others. Among the most common in the world is the one English has, which is subject and then verb and then object. The least common is object first. Since Klingon is not a human language, it gets the least human thing, which is not to insult the speakers of languages that really do this. Anyway. So here's another new verb, if you're keeping track. Lech is a right? Lech means see. Hod is the captain. It's Klingon, spelled sloppily. Okay. Hod lech Klingon, that means captain. That means Klingon. This means the Klingon sees the captain. Because the doer comes last, comes after the verb. The Klingon sees the captain. Klingon le chod. The captain sees the Klingon, right? Okay, simple. Chod le rach. Rach is he or she, so he sees the captain. Rach le chod. The captain sees him, the captain sees her. So sometimes there is no object, depending on what you're talking about, what the verb is. But still, the order is this. You just skip the O. So it's the verb and then the subject. So yit, remember yit, walking. Yit Klingon, Klingon walks. Yit chod, the captain walks. Yit rach, he or she walks. It's like that. It's easy. If you want to know how to say the Klingon walks the dog, that's another topic. Klingon walks. If the so far I've been using, except for ach for he and she, I've only been using nouns, but there's pronouns for I and for you as well. The one for I or for me is jich. The one for you, one of you, is shoch. All right. The one for we or us is mach. And the one for y'all, okay, because I don't have that in certain kinds of English, is kech. And you can, swap them in, where the nouns are, right? So if you want to say, I see the captain, chod le jich, right? Wrong. That's not how you do that. Okay, because when the subject is first or second person, you need a prefix. Okay? So let's do that, the leg thing. Okay, good. Let me think for a second, which is the best order of presenting these. Let's do it the other way, not there. We'll go back to yit. Okay? I walk, you would think, and you would be wrong because I just told you, is yit jih, I walk? No, it has to be a prefix jih that comes here. Jih means I, so jih yit jih, yeah.
Do you also need the subject with the prefix, so is
You always 3 steps ahead. No, you don't. When he asks me, since I have the prefix, it means I. Do I also need the pronoun myself? No, it's optional. You'd have it there if you want to emphasize I or something like that, but you don't need it. You walk, biyit, or biyit show if you want the show, but you don't need it. Okay? Easy enough. Now, if you want to say, now just do that. Which means see. Okay. So now I see the captain. I see the captain. Right? No. Because if there's an object, you have a different prefix altogether, which is vid. I apologize for the sloppy writing. Or viler, as I see the captain. And it's not hod de, which is you. It's not diler, it's da, daler, hod daler. So a whole set of prefixes combining the subject and the object when the pronouns are involved.
Is that why the Klingons are so angry?
That contributes to why the Klingons are still angry, yes. And there's a simple rule that when third person is involved, okay, it's just third persons, like he, she, they, then you don't need prefixes at all. Except when you do. Okay. All right, so enough of that stuff. Now what if it's the other way around? What if it's the object? Okay, so we had the Klingon sees the captain. The Klingon smaller words. Klingon sees the captain. Okay, what if the Klingon sees me? Need a prefix. That's not good enough. Okay, Klingon sees me, is a little prefix mu. Mu means he does it to me or she does it to me. Okay, so then you don't need the jih, because it's already there in the mu, of course. What if there's no third person involved at all? Okay, you see me. You see me. No. Need a prefix that means you do it to me, which is pa. So it's paler. Not that. That means you see me. You don't need the pronouns on either side. It's paler, you see me. That's the whole thing. What else? Another interesting fact about Klingon grammar is that there's no Klingon verb to be. Since you're going to ask, the reason there's you're going to ask, the reason there's no verb to be is because I wanted Klingon to be as different as I could from the point of view of the people who are familiar with the other language of the film, which is English, except for when it's dubbed and stuff. And in English, the verb to be is extremely, extremely common. I mean, be is, am, are, all that stuff. So if you were to do a word count of every time I've used a form of the verb to be since I started talking, it would be really, really high, because it's very, very common in English. Therefore, it does not exist in Klingon for that reason. So how do you say things like be big, be strong, be brave? Okay, word for brave, yoch. It's brave. That means be brave. Okay, So if you say the Klingon is brave, verb and then subject, right? Yoch Klingon, the Klingon is brave. The B is incorporated into what we call B, is incorporated into the thing. You are brave is bioch. You use that bid suffix that means you. Bioch, yeah.
How would you do that as an adjective, like the brave?
That's my next topic. You saw this ahead of time. If you put Klingon, Yoch, that doesn't mean somebody braves the Klingon. That means the brave Klingon. Okay, so you use those kinds of stative verbs, if you will, as adjectives. And that's what the adjectives are. Yeah.
When you glossed that, you said the Klingon, but you haven't said anything that definite.
There's no articles in Klingon.
Oh my God.
Okay, so the Klingon, a Klingon is Klingon is just the same. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta ask a smart aleck question. In the original Hamlet, in the original Klingon, how do you say to be or not to be?
Well, this will make the talk tomorrow shorter. This is good. In Star Trek VI, in the original script, okay, in the undiscovered country, in the original script, there's lots of Shakespeare phrases all over the place. In the original script, some were in English and some were in Klingon. As filming went along, all the ones that were originally in Klingon either got turned into English or disappeared altogether. So by the time the final script existed, not the final, there's never a final script, but near the final script existed, there was no Klingon quotes in Shakespeare, Shakespeare quotes in Klingon. Until one day I arrived on the set, and the first person I happened to run into was the director, writer Nick Meyer. He said, I need a new Klingon phrase from you. I said, okay, that's my job, okay. I said, what is it? He said, to be or not to be. I said, okay. And I thought, oh no, because there's no verb to be in Klingon, right? And I was not about to change that. So I said, what if it means to live or not to live? He said, that's good. Go tell Chris. Chris is Christopher Plummer, who's the actor who had to say the line, right? And the way to say live in Klingon is yin. Okay. Now I should point out that between the time I originally made up the language, which was for Star Trek 3, and Star Trek 6, which is this one, which was several years later, in between that, I wrote a book, which may or may not have been a good idea in retrospect, called the Klingon Dictionary. And so I had to use the words that were in it, and the word for live is yin. Okay, fine. And to say to live or not to live, there's lots of ways you could have done it, but I kind of did it down and dirty, and I did live or live not, basically. So that's yin is live, pach, or yin again, that. That's one word. Live or live not. Fine, so I go tell Christopher Plummer, famous Shakespearean actor, how to say this in Klingon. So I go to him and he says, I understand you have a new word for me. I didn't know whether he was liking speaking Klingon or not, actually, as this was going along. Because a lot of his Klingon lines kind of got lost as we were going along. But he started calling me Marc, so I decided it was okay. So he says, I understand you have a new line to teach. I said, yes. He says, what is it? I said, yin pach, yin bet. And he goes, yin? I said, yeah. He said, that's too wimpy. Think of something else. That's not what he said, but that's what he meant. So I said, all right. What if it's saying yin pach, yin bet? We say, tach pach, tach bet. Tach, tach, tach. And he goes, tach. Tach is good, let's keep tach. Up until that moment, Tach was a suffix. If you've been keeping track or writing notes, I wrote that a few pages ago. It's a suffix that meant to continue doing, to keep on doing whatever the verb is. So I kind of promoted tach to be a verb in its own right. So tach, patach, that means to go on or not to go on, to continue or not to continue, to endure or not to endure. And that's the line that's in the film. So that's how. All right, so the last part of speech in Klingon, as I said, is called lach, which means everything else, yeah.
Because where you said there's no articles, are there like demonstrative pronouns like that?
They're not pronouns, they're suffixes. For this and that, they're suffixes, yeah. I'm not telling you everything. I wrote this stupid book, buy it, you know.
Joel has them for sale.
Actually, they just reissued the book with a nifty new cover. I don't even have it. And so let's talk about lach, the other stuff, the other parts of speech. So this is just a hodgepodge of stuff. One of them is the numbers. So count to 10. I'm not going to write it. I'm tired of writing. But 1, it's easy. They're all similar until you get to 10. Wop. Chop. Wedge. Bush. Vag. Jav. Schotch. Chorch. Goed. That's 9. Okay, 10. There's a suffix mach. Mach that means tens or teen or something. So 10 is 1 teen, sort of. Well, 110. So wat mach. Wat mach is 10. 11 is wat mach and 1. So it's wat mach 1. 12 is wat mach cha. And so forth. 20 is 2 machs. So chop mach. 30 is wedge mach. And all that. 100 is wat vash. 100s. 0 is par. The writers of Star Trek didn't know that, and they named one of the Klingon ships Par. I decided that that's probably okay, because, you know, if you're third place, you're the third place. Better than that is second place. Better than that is first place. Better than that has got to be 0th. So Par is over. There's another problem with the numbers that I discovered after you know, a couple of years of this stuff happening. The number 3 is wedge. There's another word in Klingon, wedge, that means not yet, hold on, something like that. So if you say, okay, we're going to do something now, ready? Wop, chop, wedge. When you use the numbers, like in English, precede the noun. So 1 Klingon is wop Klingon. Okay. 2 Klingons is chop Klingon poop, but you don't need the poop because you have the chop. I should have mentioned that about the nouns too. All nouns, you don't need the plural suffix unless it's relevant. Okay, so any noun could be singular, could be plural, except for the nouns that are always plural. Okay, they're different. If you put the number after the noun, that's like counting things. Klingon what means Klingon number 1, whatever that means. Another kind of word is an adverb. There's things like rech means always, pour, soon, veel, forcefully, do something forcefully. So rech Klingon poop viler, understand this, right? Rech means always. Klingon poop, Klingons, viler, I see. I always see Klingons. Tour jiet, tour soon, jiet, I'm running, I'll run soon, something like that. You can put nouns together in Klingon, like I mentioned, kind of in passing. So the Klingon language, the name for the Klingon language itself, is Klingon. Klingon means Klingon, Chol means language. So Klingon is Klingon language. Jak means speak. So Klingon v'jak, I speak Klingon. Klingon v'jak, can you speak Klingon? Petvil Klingon, Petvil Klingon v'jak, you speak Klingon forcefully.
Yes.
Which is the right way to do it. But Klingon, you speak Klingon honorably, which is also the right way to do it. Yeah.
How do you ask a question in Klingon? Do you have an inflection? Or?
It's not inflection. There's once again there's two ways. If it's a yes/no question, like do you speak Klingon? You add a little ah to the end of the verb. Ah, do you speak Klingon? If it's a who, what, where, when, why kind of question, then there's words for that. Who is Iv? What is Nur? When I was working on the language on the set, the crew kept coming up to me, not the Enterprise crew, the filmmaking crew kept coming up to me and would say, "Oh, you're the language guy." I said, "Yeah." They'd say something in Klingon. I said, "What should I say?" They say, "Hi, how are you? How are you doing?" I said, "Klingon would never say that." It got to be a boring answer after all, so I made up a greeting in Klingon, which is Nuk Nech. Okay, Nuk means what? Okay, Nech means once, so what do you want? That's the end of Klingon 1.
So I was just wondering, because when you're running with pronouns, they don't have gender or case.
There's no gender or case. Well, except for the case in the sense of subject and object. Yeah. There's no gender. There is gender in Klingon. It's not gender in the way it works, the way you're thinking of it with masculine, feminine, all that. But this capable of language, not capable of language thing is a form of gender because you have to know which noun is which.
How do you relate to nouns? Like you might want to say, this car is a box.
This card is a what?
A box. I don't know. Another noun.
You use the pronouns. So basically what you would say is, this car, it, what would that, is a box? Actually, the other way around. You'd say box, it, this car, topic is what it would say. You say, it is, box, it, I'm talking about, it's hard to explain. As far as cars go, it's a box. Use the pronouns as is, but sort of, yeah.
What happens if something you want to say, like an insult, is it like, your ship is a garbage scow?
That you use that all. You would use that construction, and then you'd duck. Anyone else? Anything? Yeah.
Has there been any episodes where like the Klingon language structure influences the plot? Like, cultural misunderstandings because of
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think so. There's been stuff where the language drives the plot. They had to understand each other in order to get on with it. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how you'd answer this, but so how did you get this job?
Practice. Let's talk about this at dinner. I'll give the short version, if I can. I got the very short version, I got the job of creating Klingons because before that I created Vulcan. So that's how. So what your question really is how did I create Vulcan? When I say I created Vulcan, in the original series, the 1960s Captain Kirk one, for the most part, the only non-English language spoken ever was Vulcan. And there's probably, I don't know, a dozen words, 15 words, but they're individual words, they're names of things. So on moon is some kind of a weapon. There's only one sentence, Vulcan sentence in the original Star Trek, which is a one-word sentence, which is Kroika. Stop, cut it out. But that's it. And the first time Vulcan is heard with real sentences and all that stuff is in the first movie. There's a scene where I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. I'm not going to talk about it quickly tomorrow. Spock is being inducted into this kind of cult called Kolinar, and that whole scene is in Vulcan. And then in the second film, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, there's a very short scene where Spock and this new Vulcan character named Savik, or Savik, they still haven't decided after all these years, have a short little conversation, and that's in Vulcan. In the Star Trek II was made in 1982, if I remember right. And I happened to be in Hollywood then. I live here, well, not here, but here, for something else. And for work, but I had three free days that I didn't know I was going to have. So I was getting together with friends and stuff like that. And one of my friends said, where are you? Where are you calling me from? So I told her. She said, that's about a mile from here. Why don't you come by and have lunch? I said, okay. And here, where she worked, was Paramount Pictures. Her boss was Harv Bennett, who was a producer, I mean, he's the executive producer of Star Trek II. And I knew him for a long time ago. And I knew I had these two friends working on Star Trek, but that's all I knew. I knew nothing about the film, no details, no nothing. Just I knew that these guys were doing that. So she and I went out to lunch with another person who was working on the film, and we're sitting there talking. The other person said to me, oh, I understand you have a degree in linguistics. I said, yeah. She said, that's really interesting because we've been talking to the linguistics department at UCLA recently. And I said, why? I was telling people at dinner, I've been in a lot of linguistics departments. The phone doesn't ring. In fact, it's not a joke. At UC Berkeley, they took the phones out. They did. It's a money-saving thing, and everyone has a cell phone. But anyway, she said, I said, why are you talking about it? She said, well, there's a scene in the film, and I guess, the secrecy with films was a lot less strict then than it is now, because he proceeds to tell me this. There's a scene in the film where Mr. Spock and this female Vulcan character have a conversation, and when they filmed the scene, they were speaking English. But now that we're in editing and post-production, for various reasons, I'll talk about this tomorrow a little bit, they decided they should be speaking Vulcan, not English. And the easiest way to do that, because we're not going to shoot the scene all over again, is we thought to bring in this linguist from UCLA, because they're already talking to somebody. Bring this linguist from UCLA and have him or her watch the film and look at the lips and make up gobbledygook that matches the lip movement but sounds different. Okay, so if the character said bow, you have them say poo, because it looks the same but sounds different, that kind of thing. And I said, that's a really good idea. And hiring a linguist makes sense because they understand what you do to make sounds and all that. And she said, well, we thought it was a good idea too, but it's turned into a headache. And this is 30-something years ago. I don't remember what the headache is. She said, I don't know what we're going to do. We have to have this taken care of right away. I said, what do you mean right away? She said, it's got to be done by the end of this week, which is exactly how long I was going to be in LA. And I said, I can do that. And my friend said, yeah, he could do that. He's got the same kind of degrees as those people at UCLA do. At that point, the associate producer happened to walk by. They turned to him and said, just solved the Vulcan problem. And he said, what do you mean? So she told him, he said, come see me after lunch. So that's how that, the fact that I knew Harv, the main producer, is not irrelevant to the story because it was his decision to hire me. So he wasn't hiring someone he never heard of or never had discussions with or something like that. But that's not what I went there for. I went there not for a job, I went there for a sandwich. But so that's how I ended up doing Vulcan. So there was two lines for Spock, 2 lines for Savik. So he showed me the film, and I made it up. Looked at the mirror and said, yeah, this matches what it says. Went in the next day because now I have to teach Savik how to say her lines. And right before we go over there to do it, this associate producer guy says, in Star Trek the Motion Picture, the first movie, they spoke Vulcan. I said, yeah, your Vulcan should sound like that. After I already made up what I was going to do. So let's go watch that. So I went over and they showed me the scene from Star Trek the Motion Picture, and there's this woman going on and on and on in Vulcan, so I'm listening, what am I hearing that doesn't affect the lips, that I can sprinkle in what I've got and not mess up the lip movements. And every once in a while I heard it, it's like in Klingon, every once in a while I heard a good can't see that on your lips. So it's pretty Vulcan. So I go there and meet this woman, actress, who's going to play Savik, first job in Hollywood or something like that, someone named Kirstie Alley. And we practice Vulcan, and look at the film, try to match the lips and all that. And I hear the director pull the producer aside and say, I don't know if this Vulcan's going to work. And the producer said, why? And he says, I don't think it should sound like Yiddish. And when he was hearing it, the director said, or the producer said, let's try it. Let's just try it. And if we don't like it, we'll change it. Okay. So we did. So we dubbed in her lines, but Nimoy wasn't there. So when they played it back, she said something in Vulcan, Savik says something in Vulcan, Spock replies in English. She says something in Vulcan, he replies in English. And the director did something that I never saw anyone do before, but he really did this. He fell down on the floor laughing. So they kept it in. A couple days later, went back, did the same thing with Leonard Nimoy. Taught him his lines. At this point, I had my job to do, so I had to leave, and I get in my car and I'm driving down the Hollywood freeway. Sounds a very Hollywood story. Right? Driving down the Hollywood freeway, realizing that I had just taught Mr. Spock how to speak Vulcan, which is and thought that was cool. As a Hollywood Star Trek-y thing, that's cool. As a linguist thing, that's cool. And that's the end of it. Back to real life. Well, here I am now. That didn't work out that way. Anyway, it's past my time. Thank you, everybody. Come tomorrow.